grade 12s. We are for a paper 1 session, which is the senior certificate examinations. Our paper 1 is 70 marks and our time allocation is 2 hours. I'm going to go through the paper with you to remind you of the most important components that you must remember as we are preparing for our June paper 1 and our preliminary paper 1. We are going to start with the instructions on page 2. Please read the instructions carefully. You must be able to have internalized the instructions that you have been practicing in a class and be able to display them as you are writing your exams. Our paper has 3 sections, and we have our section A, which is 30 marks. We have our summary, which is 10 marks. And we finally have our language, which is 30 marks. Read all the instructions carefully inside the question paper as well. Answer all questions. We are having challenges with the blanks as we are marking your scripts because you leave a blank and then tell yourself that you'll come back to it again. The chances of you coming back are very slim. So please try and do it thoroughly as you begin until the end. Start each section on a new page. When we say each section, these are our sections that we're talking about. When you finish your section A, please roll off after you finish your section A. Go to a new page and start your section B. Roll off after you finish your section B. Start your section C on a new page and roll off after you finish your section C. That is what is meant by instruction number 4 and instruction number 5. Number the answers correctly according to the numbering system used in this question paper is our 6th instruction, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So if you make a mistake, please cancel out and number it correctly. Leave a line after each answer. As you finish your 1.1, please leave a line and then go to your 1.2. Pay special attention to spelling and sentence construction. We are doing English home language, so spelling is going to temper with your grammar. Sentence construction will make the sentence grammatically wrong. So let's be on point when we are coming to our paper 1. These are our suggested time allocations. We are saying it is advisable that you answer section A in 15 minutes. That is your comprehension, which is text A and text B. You have your section B, which is your summary. You are advised to spend 30 minutes on section B. And finally, you have your section C, which is our language and our visual literacy. You are advised to spend 40 minutes on section C. Let's write neatly and legibly so that our handwritings can be seen and it can be marked. Those are our instructions and information that we must adhere to and internalize as we are starting with our exams. We have our section A, that is our comprehension. We must read for meaning and understanding. We always have suggested that you skim, you scan, and then you also comprehend. So please, let's make sure that we try and understand so that we do not struggle with the questions. Right, if we are clear, all our comprehensions nowadays are very relevant to our lives, and therefore it is based on things that affect us because of the CAPS curriculum that we do. We are no longer having the comprehensions that dealt with things that are out of our context. We all went through the COVID-19 pandemic, and therefore this is something that is familiar. Please familiarize yourself with the comprehension and don't isolate yourself. So when you are comprehending, you are now bringing in what you know, and therefore it will be to your advantage of trying to get through the questions. This was the comprehension that was dealt with in the supplementary paper that was written recently. It was laughter in the time of a pandemic, referring to COVID-19. We went through the lockdown We went through the trauma. We went through the pain. We went through the humor that we had to infuse as we were trying to get through the experience of a lockdown. These are all the things that were there in this question paper. So now it's a very relevant paper because we went through it. I'm going to be more specific, especially on text B today, going onwards. And therefore, text A, let's look at the mark allocation. This was a fair paper. I think we realized we started off with the 2 mark questions, and therefore it means it was attemptable. So please, let's make sure that we always underline our keywords so that we're very clear on what we are supposed to do. For example, on question 1.2, it says refer to paragraph 2. That's very clear that you'll only focus on paragraph 2, but your keyword was explain. Please underline it in the exam so that you are clear on what you are supposed to do, on how social media has influenced the way people engage with the news. So you are very clear when you have underlined your keyword to say you are supposed to explain. Then try and remind yourself and ask yourself, by the way, what is to explain? Please do that for all your questions so that you can be clear. Explaining is making a situation clear by describing it in detail. So your explanation is worth 2 marks. There we go. So please, let's make sure that our explanations are equivalent to 2 marks. May we avoid essay answers. May we avoid long answers when we're trying to answer our comprehension. Let's be specific in 2 answers, which is 2 points that are explaining how social media has influenced the way people engage with the news. You are very clear if you're going to be underlining your keyword and taking note of your mark allocation, which will guide you to not over answering or under answering in the exam. When we are going to 1.3, the instruction says suggest. That's what you're supposed to do. So what will you do? You will underline your keyword. What are you suggesting? Why the writer starts with the paragraph with a question. Put forward a reason. That is suggestion. You put forward a reason why the writer starts the paragraph with a question. So we must be clear as we're coming in. Let's go to paragraph 2 so that we can look at it clearly. Paragraph 2, or paragraph 3. Why is humor so often the first port of a call when South African media users find themselves in stormy seas? There may be various socio-cultural, political, and psychological reasons for this. This clearly was what we call a rhetorical question. So he starts off paragraph 3 with a rhetorical question that includes the reader into the paragraph to also try and come up with solutions and reasons why media users would find themselves in such situations. That is what we call a rhetorical question. So that's why you must be able to understand that when you are answering that question that we just talked about, suggest why the writer starts with a question. You now know it's not just a question, it's a rhetorical question, and therefore it will be able to come up with reasons why we could have a question starting off. Let's talk about functions of rhetorical questions. I'm going to go to functions of rhetorical questions because we do find them in the examination in section A. All right. Let's go to coming up with solutions of why rhetorical questions will be used. One of the functions of using rhetorical questions is always it's a hook. Rhetorical questions will be a hook to the reader. So that's something that we must start off with when we begin, a hook. So it will include the reader into the paragraph or into the comprehension, and therefore the reader becomes part of the comprehension. It is also an inclusive technique. It's an inclusive technique that the author will use to make the reader part of the comprehension. So those are some of the functions of the rhetorical questions that are there. We also think deeply about something when we have a rhetorical question. We can also think deeply about the situation at hand that the author is presenting to us as the readers. So those are some of the reasons. 2 marks was your mark allocation. So you have to be clear on that one. Underline your keywords. Your 1.4 had comment on the writer's objectivity in his discussion of pavement radio. I'll take you to paragraph 4. Paragraph 4 says there is an established body of academic literature about the important role of gossip, jokes, rumor, and satire in African politics and societies. In his landmark article, historian and human rights activist Stephen Ellis described the phenomenon of pavement radio that can be found across Africa as underpinned by the widespread oral tradition characteristic of these societies. Ellis defines this form of communication as the popular and unofficial discussion of current affairs. Unlike the mainstream media, pavement radio is not controlled by any identifiable individual, institution, or group of people, and is not to be mistaken for ordinary, unverified rumor or gossip. It performs a social and political function by covering subject matters of public interest where official information cannot be trusted or when an official announcement has not been made. Our question was touching on his objectivity. He brought in an activist, Stephen Ellis, and therefore when he was talking about pavement or radio, it was not his own definition. It was coming from the historian and human rights activist, Stephen Ellis. Therefore, we realize that this is an objective point of view because it's coming from someone else and not from him, which means it is validated. It is not his own opinion. That's why now, when you are coming into answering the question, when they say comment, you have to now touch on, did not use his own definition, but use the definition of a historian, and therefore it becomes clear that it is not his own opinion. That is the commenting that we do. All right, discuss the effect humor has on community building. That's your keyword. It's a discussion, which means if there are any advantages, disadvantages, that's where you bring them in, and it was a 3-mark allocation. If you realize, when we were with our 2-mark questions, we were touching on simple order questions. But now when we're coming to our 3-mark questions, we are now requested to do more than just highlight. We are now coming in and asked to comment. We are discussing, same in 1.6, we are discussing. Therefore, you must bring in all points of view when you are discussing that have been brought in. Let's go to paragraph 5. Humor also helps build community. South African tabloids have established a fiercely loyal readership with stories of the supernatural, silly, or absurd, alongside a strong commitment to the community interest. Tabloid readers integrate their newspaper reading practices with storytelling, sharing, and communal interpretation of newspaper content. Now we're coming in and saying it helps build community. And then how is the community built? He's talking about stories are given to people, the supernatural, the silly, the absurd, which means they will be distracted and entertained so that they also have to find something to smile about and laugh about amidst the COVID-19 situation that we were having. So now we come in and we're very clearly going to be taking words like fiercely loyal. When they are fiercely loyal, it means that they are hooked and are going to read, and therefore they will be distracted. So humor is achieved through means of the media that they read, and therefore the stories that they are presented, and therefore the community now is able now to be as one. So it's very important that you find out what has been said about humor. You find out what is used to create humor. I think supernatural is also used. Storytelling, sharing, and therefore they will have their own way of interpreting the content. So those are the things that he brought up, and therefore as a result, he even said that they joke about some of the stories that they read, and therefore that's why now they are going to be relieved of their distress during the COVID-19. That is what we call commenting. Find the things that you comment about, and then you'll be able to now to bring what you have to bring to the markers. All right. Humor has a positive effect on the community building. Humor has an uplifting effect on the community. So those are the things that can be brought in and you can bring into the markers. My main focus is going to be on text B today. That's the one I will take on text B. Then I'll go to section C as well. That's what I want to touch on. So I'm going to jump over and go to text B. Text B, remember, it's your visual comprehension. It is your visual text, and therefore you'll have a visual. You will be requested to try and understand what you say in the visual for you to be able to answer the questions that are prescribed to you. Now, our visual was on COVID-19, which is shown by the virus in the form of a giant, and we have the poor, which is held by a woman with a child on her back, and then poverty and hunger have been displayed as a skeleton at the back and holding a bag, and therefore we are coming in now and saying the woman is finding herself between a rock and a hard place. Remember, now that is playing with language, because now when we say between a rock and a hard place, she is between COVID-19, but she's also caught on the other hand by poverty and hunger, and therefore she cannot be able to run away from either COVID-19 or poverty and hunger. So that is what we are coming in now to this visual. Let's go to the questions. How does the depiction of the woman evoke sympathy? The key word is depiction. How is she portrayed? So which means we also have sympathy as our answer. It's 2 marks. Now we must be able to find something in the woman. Body language, facial expressions can help us. The wide open eyes, we now see. And therefore she is representing the poor, which means she is poor. So now we realize she also has a baby on her back. Her shoes are torn. We can see from the holes in front. And now sympathy is evoked in us when we have to talk about her, the emotiveness of how we feel when we see her shoes, to realize that she is poor. When we realize that she needs things to take care of herself and her child to fight COVID-19, but she doesn't have the things. And therefore now we are going to talk about the eyebrows raised, the mouth slightly open to reveal her fears of how she will have to overcome COVID-19, but also overcome poverty and hunger. So when we're talking about how she is depicted, those are the clues that we're using. We look at her, we study her, and then we'll be able to pick out those clues. As I said, one of them was that. Other was her eyes, her eyebrows, her mouth. So those are the things we could have taken as our answers. You just needed one, and then you explain it, and then it will be enough. Comment on how the visual and verbal clues convey the message of the cartoon. Okay, let's go to the visual and the verbal. When we're talking about verbal clues, remember we're talking about the words that are communicated to us, and I think we're taking the poor. We are going to take the poor. We're going to take COVID-19. We're going to take poverty and hunger as our clues. Between a rock and a hard place, those are our verbal clues. But when we're talking about visual clues, we are now talking of the images that we're taking. Therefore, that's why we can also take her. We can also take the distance that is here between her and the poverty and hunger skeleton and the COVID-19 giant. So now we are coming in, and you have to now be very clear. Your answers must have both visual and verbal clues. So please do not discuss one and leave one. You realize that your answers are always having composite marks. We have 3 marks. The 3 marks, you must discuss both the visual and the verbal. So let's make sure that we break down our answers into the 2, which is the visual and the verbal. Critically discuss the extent to which text B reinforces the writer views presented in paragraph 9, text A. This is usually a formal question, but remember this one needs you to incorporate both text A and text B. So please, let's make sure that we bring together text A and we bring text B into the discussion. So I need you guys to always go to text A, paragraph 9, and then you're going to extract what is necessary now for you to give how it is reinforced in text B. Let's go to text A, paragraph 9, and see what we are taking out. Laughter and humor could also be used as a coping mechanism. The news that the first confirmed COVID-19 patient had returned to South Africa from a ski holiday unleashed jokes about rich jet setters becoming infected. This may be a way to take the sting out of racial inequality and economic hierarchies. Several jokes on Twitter named other threats as a reminder that while COVID-19 is serious, other concerns should not be lost from sight. A jibe about the coronavirus having to show its proof of residence at the port of entry hinted at the high levels of violence and xenophobia in South Africa. Humor in this context is a way of showing resilience and urgency. The daily tally of the infected and dead can also be overwhelming, given the other risks that South Africans have to contend with daily. This is what we're taking out. The risks that South Africans have to contend with daily. Other risks, that's where now you have to come in. Making jokes about an added worry may help to take the sting out of the new unknown threat. So we are saying risks that other South Africans have to contend with. Poverty is one of them. Hunger is one of them. And therefore, that's what they can deal with when it comes to their lives. But now they also have to deal with and face with COVID-19. So that's how you can say it reinforces that. So I was giving an example of how you're supposed to extract information from text A, bring it into text B to show what is the common denominator between text A and text B. Remember, for these questions, you are clear. Your answers can be a no. Your answers can be a yes. So it has to come from you, how you substantiate yourself. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to say yes. So as long as you substantiate, you must be clear to say text B is reinforced by what is said in paragraph 9 when the author says 1, 2, 3, 4. Text B does not reinforce paragraph 9 text A because he contradictorily said 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are the channels of how you can do your comprehension. Understand the passage, read it 3 times, and try and make sure that you are able to understand, skim, scan, and then read for understanding. So as a result, it will help you to internalize the information, and you will be able to go through the questions that you are given here. So as such, that's our section A, which is our text A. We are going to touch on section B. Please roll off after you finish your section A. It's a reminder when you start your section B. In home language, we are strictly doing a fluent paragraph. A majority of our learners are still doing the point form summary in home language. That is only done in FAL, which is your first additional language, and therefore you make a tendency of crossing over what you do in FAL and bring it to us. Our summary is strictly a fluent paragraph of 7 points. So it has to consist of 7 points, but it's a fluent paragraph. So learners usually see instruction number 1, and then they don't even go further than instruction 2, 3, and 4. Your summary should include 7 points and not exceed 90 words. You must write a fluent paragraph. You are not required to include a typo for the summary. Indicate your word count at the end of your summary. Your summary is 90 words. So if you wrote 89 words, please at the end of your summary write 89 words. Do not lie. Please, let's be honest. Candidates, let's be honest when we're doing our summaries. It's only 7 points. The skill must have been taught. The skill must have been practiced by this time to say you are able to do a paragraph summary, fluent paragraph, in 7 points in not more than 90 words. Do not cheat. Do not lie to the markers. That is your question. Text C discusses the mysteries of the teenage brain. Summarize in your own words how parents can better understand their teenage child. So we are coming in. This is highlighted for you. Right. They highlight it for you so that it can be clear that this is what you're going to deal with, how parents can better understand their teenage child. So anything that you're taking in the summary is only dealing with a strategy that parents can use to better understand their teenage child. Remember, we are supposed to use our own words as far as possible. Please do not plagiarize. Please do not use the words as they are used in the passage. Please use what we call synonyms. Let's try and list the things that we can use when we're dealing with the summaries. Let's use synonyms. Let's use jargon, common terms, no listing, no examples. That's our summary. So our summary, we will request that please, let's try to make sure that when we are doing the summary, all right, let's be clear this side that this is summary. When we are doing our summary, let's use synonyms, let's use jargon, let's use common terms, let's not list, let's not put examples. Use your own words as far as possible. The key word is as far as possible. So let's try that as much as possible when we're coming to our summary. All right. So let's make sure that when you are taking out your 7 points, use your own words as far as possible. Take only the relevant points. If the question says how parents can better understand their teenage child, do not take everything. Just only extract what is relevant for parents to know. Let's make an example. Can better understand, the question said how parents can better understand their teenage child. All right. Understanding what is happening to their child is the first step to navigating this life passage. Less obvious, but even more important is to understand is that the brain of teenagers is only about 80% complete by adolescence. Parents must understand this about their children. This is our first point. Not this one that is said, understanding what is happening to their child is the first step to navigating this life. This is reinforcing the question. This is answering what they can do to understand. That is what we mean when we say, please take, what must they do to understand their teenage children? So we must be able to remove what is necessary for us. That is what we mean by the summary. It will be 7 points. Change to your own words, as we said, and then we can be able to have our summary. Our summary, remember, is marked as 7 So let's be clear. When we are coming to the summary, when we say 7 points, let's be clear that we understand what is done for our summary. Our summary is 7 points plus 3, which is for the language. Language, they are consisting of spellings, punctuation, word order. So please make sure that you understand what this 3 marks is for. This 3 marks is for your language. This 3 marks is for your language, which is your spellings, your punctuation, your word orders. Please, language counts. So please make sure that you do the right thing. Please also use 3 connectors is enough for you to try and connect your summary. When we say connectors, we are talking of furthermore, finally, in addition. They will help you in the long run. Firstly, also comes in. Moreover, so these are examples of what we call connectors. There are so many. I just gave a few examples. 3 will be enough if you're going to start with firstly, and then you use furthermore in the middle, and then you use lastly or finally. 3 connectors are there, which means you have a coherent summary. I am referring to these connectors because your summary must be fluent. So those connectors are going to help you achieve the fluency that is wanted for a summary. It will be different from what usually we are trying to avoid you doing, which is first point, full stop. Second point, full stop. Third point, full stop. Fourth point, full stop. Fifth point, full stop. And then 7th point. That is so redundant, and therefore we are trying to achieve fluency. That is so boring and redundant. So please, let's try and achieve fluency by inserting at least 3 connectors will be enough to make your summary fluent. Let's go to our most difficult section, which is our language structures and conventions. That is our section C. We have so many challenges. So we are going to come in and say, remember when it comes to, advertisements, you must be able to know your AIDA principle. Remember, this is attention, interest, desire, and your action. Your AIDA principle is your technique for going through the advertisement. My apologies. So let's make sure that we internalize our AIDA principle. Also, when it comes to advertisements, let's call our characteristics of advertisements by name, image, or visual, usually. We also have our slogan. We also have our logo. So we must be clear and be able to identify what we have. So let's please make sure that we know our characteristics as much as possible. Get real, get into direct mail. That is our slogan. That is our slogan. When we say, imagine tasting this ad, that is the title of the advertisement. That is our logo. That is our logo. So please, let's make sure that we're able to identify. And this is our visual. This is our information that gives us more information. We have it written down clearly for us. Direct mail is reality marketing at its best. It is an opportunity for your customer to share real time with your brand. It can delight the eye, charm the taste buds, and even tantalize the nose. This is the medium with no remote control. You can't zap it, mute it, or change the channel. It's not virtual and can't disappear into cyberspace. Direct mail is not front of you to experience. Is in front of you to experience. My apologies. Start building real client relationships affordably in a one-on-one, personal, and measurable way. Visit us at www directmailcenter.co.za or call the Direct Mail Center on 011 318 3390. Get Real Direct Mail Center, a division of the Post Office Group. Get into Direct Mail Post Office, we deliver whatever it takes. Let's go to our questions and try and see what was wanted this time around from learners. Describe the service being advertised. You had to give a description of what they do. So now we are going to find out what they do. All right. Okay. Let's go to and even tantalize the nose. This is the medium with no remote control. It's not virtual and can't disappear into cyberspace. All right. They are asking the question that says, describe the service being advertised. Marketing is the service that is being advertised, which means they market for your clients and therefore they can build a service for you that will be suitable for the clients that you deal with. It's marketing. The service being advertised is marketing. Is reality marketing at its best. So the service is reality marketing. That's your 2 marks. You have to describe it. As I said, that's why you have to specify. They will design the actual package that you need for your clients that you deal with. Comment on the advertiser's claim about direct mailing. This is the medium with no remote control. You can't zap it, you can mute it or change the channel. All right. So when we are coming to comment, you must be able now, they even quoted for you to say you only focus on this one. Right. When we say it has no remote control, we are dealing with we'll start with remote control. We're going to comment on remote control. We can't zap it. We're going to mute or change it. So those are the things that we're going to focus on, the 3 things that we'll mainly focus on. So when you're commenting, you're going to take particular things in the question and then you're going to make a comment on them. When you say there's no remote control, it means that you can control it yourself. They do not control it for you. You will control it yourself, which means you will have access to see how far it can go and how far you can take it. And therefore you can't zap it, which means you cannot be instantly trying to change it, mute or change the channel. It's very integrative and therefore you must be able to control it as the client. You must be able to control it. That's what they mean by this one. So which means it will not automatically happen, but you will have to take control of it. Therefore, you must be able to know you can't change it instantly. It has to be controlled. That's what we mean by those 3. In your view, does the visual image effectively convey the message of the advertisement? Please describe the visual. The question when it says visual image, please describe the visual. Then you can be able to say the message portrayed effectively by the visual or not. Please describe the visual. It's a young female who is having a sweet in hand, and therefore the sweet is leaning towards her mouth and her mouth is open. Please describe the visual. You must be able to describe it first before you can attempt the question. Does it convey the message of the advertisement? And therefore, that's where now you can be taking what is said about the advertisement. It can delight the eye, charm the taste buds, and even tantalize the nose. This was mentioned in the information. And therefore, now we can see the relevance of the sweets towards the mouth, and therefore the senses that are being highlighted are the eye, which means it's eye-catching, charm the taste, which means it's tantalizing, And then, as they say, it's the nose. So which means when our senses are awakened, we are going to have to comment on the sense that it will be appealing. This is clearly moving towards the appeal that the service gives. And therefore, I think the service has been compared to a sweet, and therefore it's the appealing sense of the service that is now given in the imagery of the sweet. So it does effectively convey the message. It really does, because the appealing is also confirmed through the mention of the senses, taste buds, the smell, the eye catching. So they will be very effective. Those are the three things that you can mention. You can discuss one, fully discuss it. As long as you'll be able to give it 3 marks in total, you will get away with it in the examination room. What is the function of ellipsis in imaging tasting this herb? Right, let's go to the adverts. And then they put ellipses. Ellipses are the 3 dots that always come in after a conversation or a statement. It's incomplete, which means that the function of the ellipsis is for the reader to finish off the statement. We are going to be given an opportunity to finish a statement ourselves, and we are going to be able to put in our own input. So it's a thought is to evoke a thought in us as the readers or the target audience. The ellipsis is to evoke a thought in the reader, and therefore the reader will have an input imagining the tasting. So it's evoking a thought in us. Give a suitable subject for the sentence without changing its meaning. Start building real client relationships affordably in a one-on-one personal and measurable way. One must start building real client relationships. That's another way of putting a subject. So it can be one can start building. So we'll insert a subject here at the beginning. Subject is at the beginning of the sentence. So we are not supposed to change the meaning. One must start building real client relationships affordably in a one-on-one personal and measurable way. A person must start building real client relationships affordably. That's also a subject that you can include. So I took a person as the subjects that can be appropriate for this one. So let's please make sure that we remember our characteristics of advertisements so that we can be able to go through the questions. Please revise your AITA principle. Please revise your logo, your slogan, your image, information, and their effectiveness, as it will come in handy for you to get through. As the notes that I wrote on the side to say the slogan, the image, it will help you a lot. And then we go to our cartoon. We also have characteristics of cartoon. Remember, in cartoon, we also are given verbal clues, visual clues. They will come in for you. So you must be able to, let's go to cartoons. Cartoons, we have verbal clues. We have visual clues. We have characters. As well. So, sorry, my apologies. All right, so we have characters as well. So let's try and make sure that when we are coming to cartoons, we are able to bring those. My apologies for the mess I did there. All right, so we have good old Charlie Brown. When we are talking about visual clues, we are talking about their body language. We're talking about their facial expressions. Those are our visual clues. We're talking about the movement lines. We're talking about the caricature. But when we're on verbal clues, we're going to talk about the font. We're going to talk about the diction that is used. We're going to talk about the punctuation that is used. Those are what we call verbal clues. Okay, we have Peanuts featuring good old Charlie Brown as our cartoon for today that has 10 frames. And therefore, we have to try and get through the questions. Information was given to us that the boy's name is Charlie Brown and the girl's name is Lucy. So we now know this is Charlie and then this is Lucy. So let's go to our questions and see what was requested. Explain how Charlie Brown's mood is conveyed in frame 3. You're going to be proud of me, Lucy. I've decided that this next year is going to be my year of decision. Now they said, how is his mood conveyed in frame 3? He has a smile on his face. And now we are seeing its happiness. Because it said in frame 3, I'm going to take the visual clues, smile on his face, which amounts to happiness or pride. And then as we take the words, affirmative words like I have decided, and therefore that's where we can say determination. He's determined, and therefore he's convinced that he will make it. So happiness shown by the white smile on his face, that is the mood that is conveyed by Charlie. Discuss both characters' viewpoints with reference to the cartoonist depiction of them, which means we are referring to frames 4 to 6 only. We are starting from this frame and also ending on this frame. That's frame 4 to 6. On frame 4, it says, this is a list of things in my life that I'm going to correct. I'm going to be a better person. Not me. I'm going to spend this whole year regretting the past. It's the only way, Charlie Brown. Frame 6 says, I'm going to cry over spilled milk and switch over lost loves. It says, characters' viewpoints with reference to the cartoonist depiction. You are starting off with Charlie. Charlie's viewpoint is self-improvement, and therefore its manifestation. He's going to list things down and he's going to do them so as to better himself. But when we come to Lucy, Lucy is not going to do anything to do differently. And as such, what Lucy is going to do is to be dwelling on regrets. They have contradictory viewpoints, and now we realize diction can be used to show the viewpoints. I'm going, that's Charlie. I'm going to is repeated twice in frame 4. That is Charlie showing determination and action that is going to do. But when we come to frame 5, Lucy, and in frame 6, Lucy is negative, but Charlie is positive. Lucy is very negative as she feels that it doesn't change anything to do anything differently. So as such, she's not going to do anything. She's going to regret the past. She's also going to cry over spilled milk. So Charlie is not going to focus on what he has lost. He's going to focus on what he can do and gain in the future. So their viewpoints are very different. So we have to be clear on the viewpoints. One is negative, who is Lucy. Charlie is positive, and therefore we see with the affirmative words that Charlie uses that shows his positive viewpoint. Those are both characters in 4.2. And it says, comment critically on 4.3 on the effectiveness of frame 10 in the context of the cartoon. Frame 10 is the last frame. Oh, what regrets, what remorse, what anguish, what? And then Charlie doesn't say anything, he sighs. Frame 10 is the closing frame. And now we are going to talk about frame 10, showing that their viewpoints remain the same. They do not change. Lucy in frame 10 walks away from Charlie, but Lucy is listing all the things that she regrets. So she's listed them down, and therefore, when she walks away, she's still continuing with the listing, and it's still not finished by the ellipsis that is there. So the ellipsis shows Lucy is still listing and still has a lot of things to say. Charlie gives up. We're seeing the detection in Charlie when he has his hand wide open, and then he has a sigh written in his frame to show he has nothing else to say. He's out of words to say as he has tried to convince Lucy and has failed. So now we realize resignation. We see resignation in Charlie, but we still see Lucy continuously listing, sent by the ellipsis and walking away from Charlie. So their viewpoints are not changed. So when frame 10 closes, they are still on different viewpoints, and therefore they are not on the same page. That is our frame 10 and 4.3. Refer to frame 5, rewrite the following sentence in indirect speech. The rules of indirect speech dictate that the tense must change. The first thing that must change is the tense. The second thing that must change are the pronouns. Our pronouns are am, so they must change. This must change. Now we are reporting, so we are going to change the reporting, and therefore it must be Lucy said that. That is the reportive word. Lucy said that she was going to spend that whole year regretting the past. That is how we change it into indirect speech. You have to report. I will repeat it again. Lucy said that she becomes she, going, it becomes was going to spend this whole year, becomes that whole year regretting the past. That is our indirect speech. When we realize of what is happening lately, it's that usually the closing question of the cartoon is having a language component. If you've been going through the question papers, you might have realized direct speech, indirect speech, passive voice, concord, dictionary work. So we are now getting those questions up here and not down there alone. So prepare yourselves for that. And then we finally going to question number 5, which is our most difficult question, which is the language editing. Deliberate errors are there. We must be able to find the errors as we're reading through. The majority of our learners are complaining that they do not see the errors. One of the biggest challenges is your constant use of informal language, your constant use of wrong grammar. That is leading to you not picking up the errors as you are reading. And therefore, you must be able to try and speak in normal language so that you can be able to understand that as you are reading, you are picking up an error. You must correct the errors. It says when your Airbnb host charges you for air, that is a pun. That's a word play, but let's go on and see what was wanted from us. Paragraph 1 was our first question, which says a TikToker with the username @PuppyRiz shared a video of a gadget they encountered while at an Airbnb. All right, it says rewrite the first sentence so that it is grammatically correct. Okay, let's go to our first paragraph. It's only one sentence. A TikToker with the username @papris shared a video of a gadget he or she encountered while at an Airbnb. That is a Concord error. The Concord is in the subject and the verb. TikToker is our subject. They is what is not in concord with. It's one TikToker, so it must be he or she and not they. If they said TikTokers with the username, it will be they encountered. But because it's only one TikToker, the verb must change they, and therefore it must not be they, but it must be he or she encountered. That is our grammatical error. 5.2 refer to lines 3 to 6. The digital screen with the numbers that tick higher and higher, the longer the aircon is on, is used to host guests responsible and accountable for using the host aircon to control the temperature of the rented room. That is our line 3 to 6. And our question based on line 3 to 6 says, correct the single punctuation error in the above sentence. Let's go back. The digital screen with the numbers that tick higher and higher, the longer the aircon is on. The comma is misplaced. It must not be there. That's the punctuation error. So it must be with numbers that tick higher and higher. The comma is supposed to come after higher. That is where the comma is supposed to be. The digital screen with numbers that tick higher and higher, comma. The longer the aircon is on, is used to hold guests responsible and accountable for using the host aircon to control the temperature of the rented room. The comma is supposed to be between higher and the. That was listing that was happening, so it had to have a comma in place. Use a suffix, change the word digital to an adverb. Line 3, let's go back to line 3. Line 3 said, the digital screen, yes, the video text read, when Airbnb host charges you for air, the digital screen with numbers that tick higher and higher, you have to use a suffix and change the word digital. Remember our prefixes and suffixes. Prefix comes before the word, and then suffix is always come after the word. So the prefix that we can place for digital will be digitally. We'll have to add an ly at the end of digital to change it into an adverb. So digital as a verb becomes digitally with an ly at the end. So it will become D-I-T-A and then double L-Y. Write the word aircon out in full. Line 4. Line 4 says, the longest the aircon is on. Aircon is air conditioner. It's an air conditioner. So this one, it's an air conditioner. I need to come down. The proper word for aircon is air conditioner. When we are saying aircon, that is informal language. It's air conditioner. That is aircon. So that provide the superlative form of accountable. Superlative are the comparative forms. When we say superlative, they are the comparative forms. So when we are supposed to give the superlative, it's most accountable. The superlative form of accountable is most accountable. So it will be most accountable there.